Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of the Graflex do-it-yourself tutorial. If you have not seen part 1, please go back and find it and watch that first. It'll help make a lot of sense. Alright, so part 2, here you go.
Okay, so in this part here, we're going to look at the cobalt D-ring, and now this is custom made. So what I did is I took my C channel, cut it down. You're going to drill a couple holes in the top. I drilled a hole in the side, drilled another hole in the side, and then put a D-ring in there. So, custom built cobalt. You're going to take your pop cap. Again, I believe this is like a 1-inch pop cap. It's in the electrical section. Alright, now you're going to take this, you're going to lay it on here. Now me, personally, I kind of eyeball it. I lay it on there the best I can, and then I take my old trusty drill and I'm going to drill through, make a couple marks, and that'll be for my rivets. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Alright, and then once you get your couple holes there, you're going to put your cobalt clip over there. Now look, you've got, these are the rivets I chose. There's different lengths, and when they say like lengths, I'm talking about from here to here. Sometimes you have long ones. I tried to get ones that would just work just enough to give enough depth to get through to the other side of the pop cap. Okay, so if you've never done riveting before, you can get yourself a manual rivet gun. Take your rivet, place it through, okay, and you see it comes out the other side there, and then you're going to slide this, well, you're going to release this. Now I don't know if I can do this one-handed. Whoops, I just knocked that. So yeah, put your rivet in there. Probably go ahead and put your other rivet through just to keep everything lined up. Now sometimes you might drill a hole, there we go, and there, I just had to push it through just a little bit more. But there you go. Now you just take your rivet, go all the way to the bottom with it, all the way down, and then squeeze the handles together. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, and as you can see, the rivet on there. Now, are they perfectly lined up? No. You know, I'm not. Again, when you drill your holes, sometimes your drill bit will walk a little bit on you. I mean, it's not a real big hole. There's not a lot of piloting I could have done. It's just a hair off. It's a little bit of human error. Not a big deal. From a distance, it looks good enough. And again, this is a custom homemade cobalt clip. So there you go. That's how you do that. Okay, now for your actual clamp body, you're going to take an additional, like I got an extra 6-inch piece of 1.5 pipe, and of course you can see there's 2 pieces of tape. You've got your, this is going to be your measurement from right here to this edge of the tape. So you can see here it's about 2 1/8, just like I did with my clamp. Okay, now I put in another piece of tape right here for a guard. So as you're cutting with your hacksaw, if you jump, if it skips over, hopefully it'll protect. It'll give you a little bit. So I put a couple layers on there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to follow this edge right where my fingernail is. That edge right there is the edge I'm going to follow with my hacksaw. Or if you have a miter saw, you can use a miter saw to go ahead and give yourself a nice straight cut. Alright, make your cut, and we'll see you in a second. Alright, once you cut through, you're going to take your piece and you can work on filing your edges. I suggest filing your edges first before we make the long cut and open this up, because then this thing kind of vibrates a lot more, doesn't have that rigidity. So you want to go ahead and work on filing and getting this straight, knocking off the burrs, and just making sure, take your tape measure and go around and just get it like a nice even number. Okay, make sure everything's even so you have a good solid measurement. All right, well, we'll see you after we get some filing done. All right, now that we did some filing, now what I want you to look at is see the black mark? That's where I'm going to cut. All right, I'm going to cut straight down, but before I do that, I pretty much looked at 90 degrees out, and see I kind of marked it. See how you got, that's your center line where I'm going to cut, and then you got 90 degrees, 90 degrees, and then on the sides you see there's two little holes. Okay, now on the real Graflex, those holes are square. They're cosmetic, really. So I'm going to start with a pilot hole, and then I'm actually going to go up to about that size. And even though they're going to be round, it's just going to be aesthetics. You know, I can't make the square hole, but we're at least going to make it look close. You know, round, square. All right. Well, I'm going to drill the holes first, by the way. Then I'm going to make my cut, because obviously once you make your cut, this thing's going to lose its rigidity. So we'll get these cut first, or the holes drilled first. Again, being really careful not to let it walk on you. And then we'll get the cut. So we'll see after we do that. Okay, so once you get your holes drilled and you get that cut, you see here, it expands out. So this will allow to slide over the body, and that's what gives you that clamp. Of course, the holes are probably a little big compared to the square ones, but not bad. I like the character of it. So there you go. There's my clamp section. Give it a little bit of filing. You can see how it has a little bit of a dull sheen to it. That's because I took some 800 grit sandpaper and kind of dulled it a little bit. Gives it a little more of that finish, and plus it'll allow me to hit it up with some silver spray paint. All right. Okay, so we're going to start doing the inner body, or like the emitter part, if you want to call it. This section right here. Now you can see this is just preliminary. This isn't even going to be the real piece here. This is just like a prototype. Basically, I kind of put together stuff. So this is going to be the actual inner pipe, but you can see it's a little too long because it's a 12-foot section. This has already been cut down. So, of course, you know, I like to go, I'm probably going to go somewhere down in here. Okay, and I'll take my trusty painter's tape, just like you see up here. I'm going to tape this, and then I'm going to hacksaw. I like to have a good inner section because I'm going to put some buffering tape in here, and that'll help just keep it even and, you know, looking good out here. You'll understand what I mean later once we do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my hacksaw, and like I said, probably end up hacksaw somewhere about the middle of my clamp, cutting that. So that'll be your first step. Okay, I got the cut through. Now I am going to take the file and just file this a little bit down, because that's just mostly for protection so you don't hurt yourself. So alright, I'm going to file it down and we'll go to the next step. Okay, now that I did some filing on this, and basically the only reason why I'm filing this was just so you don't really cut yourself and snag yourself too much on this stuff. So that's the only real reason why I was filing that, because this is going to be on the inside of the saber anyways. So one of the big things is going to be this. This is going to be sort of your false clamp on the Graflex. Okay, so for example, when you have your bunny ears in real life on the Graflex is a clamp. You actually squeeze those bunny ears, it opens up the clamp. So anyway, so we're making like a false clamp. Now you can see here where I cut. So to make this false clamp, you're going to take the same aluminum strip that you made your bunny ears with, and you are going to kind of wrap it around this pipe. So you'll just have to start and bend and wrap it the best you can until you get a nice bend around. And of course you'll have to take some pliers, bend it up, and cut them off. But that's all you're doing. You're just going to use this. You can see how it's pretty flexible. I just bent this to show you, but obviously I got it to go into a full circle just about. And then you know, you can take your needle nose, your pliers, bend some pieces up, and then ultimately just go ahead and cut them off. So that way you end up with a nice fit right around the end. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll do the next step. All right, once you get your ring around here, you can see it's not really attached. We're going to attach it later, but we got to do some modifications to this part. But for now, you can see here when you just kind of lay it next to here, okay, when you lay it next to your saber, you can kind of see how deep it's going to go into the hilt. So I'm going to take some of my tape and I'm going to wrap it around here, and you see where this other button is, see where your lower button's going to be. I want to put some tape right around here. So I'm going to have two rings of tape here and here. And I'm going to wrap it around the pipe enough to where it causes a buffer. I'll show you. Okay, so referencing the Graflex, okay, it looks like about where the corner, this bottom corner of this charging pin is going to be about where we're going to make our cut. And then of course the same thing on this side we'll make corresponding there. And of course we're going to want to go right to the lip. So take your little trusty Sharpie here, and we're going to make our marks. Alright, there we go. Okay, once we make our marks, that way we kind of know we want to cut to about there. So what I mean by is we are going to cut, see this section from here back and then over to our other mark, and our other mark out to here. Okay, so it's going to be like a U shape we're cutting out of here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that out and show you guys what it's going to look like, and I'm going to use my mini hack to do it. Alright, and this is what you can see here. This is what I was talking about. Okay, so if you haven't done it yet, go ahead and make that. Now you can see it's real rough, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my file, I'm going to file all that up. Alright, so that's what you're going to want to do. Cut your piece out. Now again, what I did is I made a cut down here, and I did it as low as I could without going past my marks. And then I did here, I took my time being real careful, cut as low as I could, and then you just have to kind of finagle your saw a little bit, stand it up a little bit, and then you can see where here this actually kind of it got cut, and then I had to kind of twist off that last little piece. And you can even take your cutters and cut a little bit more of that corner out if you have to, but really at this point I'm just going to file. I'm going to file, make it as straight as I can, and have it decent looking, and then I'll show you the next step. Alright, so now that you've got your U cut out, the next layer that we're going to kind of get prepped is going to be your PVC layer. Alright, so this is your 3/4 PVC. Alright, this is going to be an inner layer. Now you notice there's black on here. This was just some some test stuff. This is just me doing some prototype work. So I'm gonna lay this here. You'll see I'm laying it right up to this part of the U shape of my other layer, and I'm just getting a rough idea. And you can see I'm pretty much going to go ahead and cut it right here where this tape is. That way they're going to be about the same length. Alright, so go ahead, I'm going to make my cut right here, and we'll see in a second. Alright, you can see I made my cut. So this piece here, this is extra. We can just set that aside for a future project. Alright, and this part here, this is where you're going to take your file and your sandpaper. You're going to get your edges nice and straight. You can see where it's a little rough. But yeah, you're going to work on filing this. And of course, just bevel your edges, which means just give them, just knock down the sharpness of them just a hair. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do a little bit of filing, do some sanding, and then I'll show you guys when I get done. Alright, that should be the next step. Okay, so now that I went ahead and I sanded all this and filed it. First I filed with the flat file across the top, got it nice and even. Took the half round and also a small round file, hit up some of the insides. And then of course put a little bit of a bevel on the outside, okay? See how I just kind of rounded those corners just a touch. And then I went ahead with some sandpaper, some 60 grit, and then some 800 grit, and just kind of worked around, made it nice and smooth. Okay, now you just notice here I've got some O-rings. Ultimately what we're going to end up doing is we're going to put this O-ring, we're going to do this O-ring right on top. Okay, we'll end up epoxying the O-ring right on the very top of this. Okay, now you don't have to do that right now because we got another step before we do that. Okay, and I'll get ready to show you that here in a second. But just to kind of show you what we're going towards is ultimately, as we build the inside of this, you can see here we've got this. Our seal is going to end up being in here, and we're going to end up having that charging pin inside there. Again, we're starting to build what it's going to look like when you look down the barrel of this Graflex, just like you see in sort of the real Graflex. Okay, so just to kind of show you maybe a little bit of the bigger picture. So we're getting it. All right, now again, this will probably sit a little more recessed. I'm not really stressed about it. It doesn't have to be flush back here because this is going to be inside the hilt anyways. All right, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so this next step is going to be quick. You're going to take your inner layer. Remember I was talking about gluing that gasket on there? That's what I did. Now, maybe it's a mistake, I don't know, but I believe it's good to go ahead and do it right now. So that's what I did. And you're going to take your 3/8 by 36 inch round bar, and you can see all this is, it's just solid aluminum. Alright, and you're just going to take, and all you got to do is cut off about 2 inches. Okay, just cutting off about 2 inches from the end, probably about this much, and that's all you need. Go ahead and cut that off now. Okay, and now that you've cut it off, you're probably looking at mine going, Josh, that looks odd. Well, guess what? That's because I went ahead and used, you can see here, there's 6 total 3/8 neoprene washers. Okay, now you see I didn't even bother filing much of this back in when I cut it. When I went ahead, as I stacked these 3 neoprene washers, and I just eyeballed a good distance, and I stacked 3 back here, and I kind of separated them, put some glue in between them, some E6000, and I tried to go ahead and glue them here. But before I did all that, you're going to want to paint the end of it with your gold marker or gold spray paint, whatever you choose to do. Okay? That's going to be your inner pin. Alright, so go ahead. Remember, if you have to, pause. You can reference this video anytime you need to, okay? Okay, so once you do all that, you're going to insert that piece just like that. Gold tip first in the back end. See where we did that? So if you look down in there, there's our pin. So what you want to do, you can either take a long drill bit, or you can even just go ahead and use your original rod and then slowly push that down, and then you want to get that in place where that pin is flush with that gasket. Okay, I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so once you push that up and in place, that's when you're going to get your pin, and you can see this is what it's going to look like when you're looking down the barrel. You're going to see that nice gold pin. So I'm really excited. Okay, so we're going to be starting the C channel section. Of course, the button box that's on the Graflex. You can see I've got my C channel here, and you can see where the tape is. Now the reason why is because I went ahead and I measured out. Okay, and you're going to measure out, I did actually like 2 inches, and I gave myself 1/8. So measure 2 inches, 2 1/8 inches. All right, go ahead and mark. The reason why I gave myself an extra 1/8 of an inch is that way it allows you for when you file these edges on both sides. You know, you're going to lose a little bit during filing. But I measured it each side, and I wrapped the tape around just to give myself a pretty good straight edge. So now I'm going to take my mini hack, and I'm going to go ahead and cut through here. Or if you have a miter saw with a metal blade, you can go ahead and make your cut. Alright, now that you cut through, you can take your piece. You can see it's a pretty straight cut for the most part. Now I'll go ahead and take my file. You can use the half round or flat. Use the flat side preferably. And go ahead and just start filing away your edges. Alright. Okay, so now what we're going to work on is the button box. And you see I've got some marks here. Alright, so what these marks are you're going to measure. So it should be about 2 inches. Mine's just a hair, like 2 1/16. But anyways, you want to measure in the middle. Put yourself a dot. Measure in the middle. Put yourself a dot. And then you're going to take your pilot hole drill, same as your rivet and your other screws, and you're going to go ahead and drill a hole on each side. So you might think, well, why don't you just drill straight through and then drill all the way through on the other side? Well, what if you're on an angle and, you know, the holes might not line up? So it's best just to go ahead and mathematically put your dots on both sides, and then you can go from there. So alright, I'm going to go ahead and drill my holes. Alright, once you get your holes drilled, there you go. So now we are going to start installing our little clamp piece, and I'll show you how that works. Okay, so you see I went ahead and I took my piece that we modified. Okay, when you just take your little toggle bolt there. Alright, and you can see these have, alright, if you look inside here, you're going to see that little nut plate inside there that the threads go through. Well, I took another one and I put that nut plate on the back side, and then I took the long bolt, went through my holes, okay, and then tighten this down to where this is really tight. You know, you can't really do anything. This isn't going anywhere. This is super tight. Now, I may put a dab of E6000 back here on the threads just to maybe keep it from backing off in the future maybe, but it's pretty tight. So I'm pretty confident when this button goes on there, it's going to look cool. You know, I think it looks cool already. So there you go. Now this here, I'm going to take my file and just file down those threads down until we get flush. Because if you notice, you'll see that little place on the clamp on the real Graf. Yeah, it's hard to talk tonight. But you'll see that on the real Graflex. as well. So there you go. Okay, so to work on your control box right here, you're going to need 3 main parts. You're going to need the 2 pieces of metal on the end, and of course the main control box. So there you can take the same exact metal strip that you've been using to make your curves, to use for your bunny ears, all of that. You can use that same metal strip, pair of cutters, and just cut you some pieces to your measurements. Okay, now these are just a hair too wide. Okay, but I'm going to take a file, I'm going to file them gently to where they fit nice and snug right in here. Now, another option, in this void area, you can take your stick from earlier, square stick, and you can lay that in here, and you can actually cut. Of course, you want it to sit back just a little bit, so that way these sit flush, which I'll show you. But we can go ahead, saw off a couple little pieces of wood and glue those in there, and that's going to give us just a little bit of backing for those end pieces. Alright, I'll show you. Okay, I just wanted to cover the charging pins real quick. What you're going to do, you're going to empty out the inside. You're going to make sure you put your little buttons in. That way it just aligns everything up. Then you're going ahead, drill your couple holes. Alright, just mark them the best you can, drill them the best you can, and there you go. That'll be your charging pins soon. Okay, so where are we in summary right now? Right now, of course, you've got your grips, you got your cobalt ring. Now, I have not glued this in yet. You can see here, I'm making the box. So if you have not glued this on, go ahead and glue this on. You can see where I glued it on. Not the cleanest glue job right there. Maybe you can do yours a little better. This side's a little more cleaner. You can see where this is. It's very important to get your alignment as well. You can see in the real Graflex, there's a grip that runs along the side. It lines up with the box and all the way down this side. So, but you know, we got our look here. You know, it's not the most perfect job, but it's a home job. It's a homemade job, and that's what makes it special. You know, that you did it yourself. It's not going to be factory perfect, but with minimal tools and some time and patience, you can make yourself a decent looking Graflex. That's metal, not plastic or foam or whatever, but actual metal. Okay, so here you go. You're going to take your comb and you're going to lay over your metal strip just like you see, and you're going to spray straight down a couple little sprays with your gold to give you that look. Okay, so once you remove the comb, this is about what you're going to see. Is it going to be perfect? No, but it looks great. So let that dry, and then you're going to spray a clear coat. Then once you let your clear coat spray, you'll be ready to install it. Okay, so once you get your strip painted, you can see here where you go ahead and put it right inside here, and you'll get a nice button box. So just to kind of catch you up to the final product, you should have your button box all together, your little makeshift clamp. You should have your grips on there. Your bunny ears should be in place. Okay, so everything should be good. This last part here, I didn't film, but I want to go ahead and explain it to you, because if you've gotten this far, you should be able to do this part on your own. But you're going to take your little bolts, okay, and they don't go very deep. I went ahead and cut them. Same thing, both sides. Now, what you're going to do is, see the button, see your red button, okay? What that is, those are remote controlled buttons. I found some old remote controls from some old cable companies that I used to have. They were sitting around in the drawers. So I took these bolts, and they're hollow, and I stuck them over different round buttons. Don't do the ovals or the square buttons, obviously. Just find the ones that are perfectly circular. And I actually found a couple buttons that were completely round and fit right over top of that. Okay? Then what I did was paint them with nail polish. You can choose whatever color you like. I like mine to have like a little bit of a sparkle to it. But again, you can find a shade that you like. If you don't know how to use nail polish very well, my wife usually helps me with that. And then once you let that dry, you got to do a clear coat. There's a nail hardener, like a clear coat for your nails, and that's what I used. Made sure it was nice and hard, and just press those in there. I didn't even use glue. Okay, so there you have it. You got some remote control buttons that are painted. They're not even glued in here. I just slid them in there. So you got one Graflex. Don't mind that. But as far as any kind of advice goes, one last thing, because this is obviously going to be the wrap up. One last thing is, make sure that when you look around and just keep an eye out in the store. I mean, just because maybe I got everything at Home Depot, maybe you don't have a Home Depot, maybe Lowe's might have some. You might have to go to multiple places. So just do your best. There's all kinds of different ways to make these, but I really appreciate all the positive support. I love it. I love building this, and I hope you love building this as well. Thank you.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed making it. So again, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please like, share. If you haven't, please subscribe. Also visit my Patreon. Guys, you guys are amazing, and I look forward to the next build. Thank you very much. May the force be with you.